So now we're about to put the oil pump back into the car, and what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna clean this area where we're gonna add some gray silicone. So this is ultra gray and a gasket maker, and we had a good experience with this. But before we add it on and we start putting it back into the engine, we're gonna clean the surface with a brake cleaner and with a rag, so we can have this area clean so that silicone grabs and seals right, so they block as well. So we start doing that. So now what we can do is we can start cleaning this area all around the block where the oil pump sits, so that way when we put the pump and the silicone grabs and seals right, so there's no oil contamination. So now that we have this ready to go, what we're going to be doing is we're going to add silicone right on this area, and this on this area, even if we have our O-ring in there. We're gonna have to clean this surface here because this is where the oil pan gasket sits and the oil pan bolts onto, on this one and this one. So we gotta make sure this surface is clean. So we do the oil pump first and then the oil pan later because it bolts into this. So if this is not on place, we cannot bolt the gasket for this. So we take care of first the oil pump and then the oil pan gasket. So we add silicone so we can start putting it back. So now we got the silicone on it, and so we're gonna put it against the block, and we're not gonna tighten it, we're just gonna set it and just kind of let it sit in there with the bolts, and then we're gonna let it dry for about 2 hours, and then we're gonna completely tighten it so that way it doesn't spit it out, so it builds actually a gasket. So if you just put it on and tighten it right away, all that silicone is just gonna be pushed out, so there's no sealing. It's not gonna make a gasket. Okay folks, so we'll just add some oil into the crankshaft so we can slide the oil pump in there and not damage the seal. So we can start putting the oil pump right in there now. So now we have set the oil pump against the block with the silicone on it. We just hand tighten the bolts, and then what we're gonna be doing, we're gonna wait a while so we can let the silicone dry a little bit more, so when we tighten it, it doesn't spit it out, so it actually stays between the two metals. We let it sit, dry, and then we tighten it, put the timing belt and everything up here. So now that we have set the oil pump right into the block, and we just hand tighten the bolts, and we have the silicone drying for about an hour and a half. So now what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna tighten all those bolts completely so we can start putting everything back together on the timing and put everything back so we can start. So we tighten the oil pump now. So now we're gonna put the tensioner spring back in, and that spring goes right into this groove to this place where the tensioner, it pulls the tensioner this way. So that little leg or that little metal goes into this bolt that it sits right on the right on top of the pulley or the oil pump right here, not in this bolt. So we just want to clarify that that bolt right on top of the pulley is the one that takes that little piece of metal that is gonna hook the spring from here to the tensioner, and that's gonna pull the tensioner in so it keeps the belt tight. Another thing we did is we took the idler bearing out for the timing belt, so you can see you have a better view of what's going on in there. So now we have put the spring on, so as you can see, the spring hooks from underneath into that piece of metal, into that plate, and then it hooks on the top of the tensioner. So then the tensioner can be pulled back as we try. That belt tries to do tension, it pulls back. So now once we put the belt on, we're gonna set everything right, put the belt on and put the right tension, and then tighten that bolt. So now that we have put the crankshaft pulley in for a timing belt, we can start putting the belt on the system. And then the timing belt, we put a mark that this mark has to end up on the same mark of the crankshaft pulley, and the tension has to be on this side, so that way it falls, it's on timing, so we never move it anywhere. So now that we have put our timing belt and set it, now what we can do is we're gonna take the crankshaft pulley off so we can put for the bottom timing belt cover. And then what we're gonna be doing is, once we do that, we're gonna put the crankshaft pulley back on, tightening it, and this cover gets secured to the block by 2 bolts in the back and 3 on the front. Ours was broken, so it was in bad shape. We found a better one, so we're gonna put it on so it's more solid now. So now what we do is we put the top piece for the timing belt cover, and then we start by the bottom one, and then the top one overlaps on the bottom one. So we put it on and we start tightening it. So now we put the bottom timing belt cover on, and then the top one we tighten it, 10mm bolts. Now we put the crankshaft pulley on. So we have put the crankshaft pulley on. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to put on the belt from the alternator to that pulley, put the tension, tighten the alternator, and then we're going to connect the hoses and everything, put everything back to where it was. We took this belt cover off or loosen it so we could take the timing belt cover off, but you don't have to take that off this one. You can kind of slide it downwards, but we did because we're going to replace this gasket, and we're going to have that video also on how we do that replacement. But for today we're going to do this, and then we'll have a video for this. So we're going to put new seals here and new gasket, and we'll show you the process. But that's why we loosened that valve cover, because we are going to be working on that soon. So let's put all this together, and then we should be done. So now we have put on the belt, which is going through the crankshaft, the water pump, and the alternator. So we're going to push the alternator backwards so we can tighten it and then put tension on the belt. That way it doesn't squeak or anything. So you barely see it in there, but we're going to put tension now and tighten it with a 12mm. So now that we tighten that 12mm to give the tension as we were pulling on the alternator, and we have the belt tight, we're gonna have to go down below and tighten the 14 millimeter bolt that goes from one side to another that holds the actual structure of the alternator to the block or the bracket. So that's the main one. We're gonna tighten it so that way it doesn't just depend on this one for tightening ends. So we gotta tighten the bottom one with a 14 millimeter wrench and a socket. And well, folks, all we have left is just to put the structure of the vacuum sensors back onto the motor mount with a 12 millimeter bolt. Don't forget to connect the ground or attach it to it, and then we connect the hoses, and that should be the replacement of the oil pump on this Tercel. Well, folks, hopefully this video was useful and informative and give you an idea how you can do an oil pump replacement on a 91 into a 94 Toyota Tercel. Also, the procedure is to take it off so you can do an oil pump seal replacement, which we're going to leave the link below here. So we didn't put it in one video, so it will be too long. So we just show you how to take it off, and then we're going to leave the link below here so you can see how to replace the seals, and then this is going to help you how to put it back on. So with that said, hopefully this video was useful and helpful. For our folks who are watching our video haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. If you like our video, give us thumbs up, share, and we'll see you soon with more videos here in el canal El Chano Jose.